Welcome to the Local Analog Podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Welch. Today I'm bringing you Kyle Mcdougall. Kyle is an Ontario-based photographer and YouTuber that has probably already grabbed your attention before. Kyle's YouTube videos are exceptional and beautiful. Kyle is generous with his insight, and we had a fascinating conversation about film, the film photography community, and the future of his photography endeavors. Enjoy the episode. Kyle? All right, so we've got Kyle Mcdougall. Kyle, where are you right now?
So I'm over in the United Kingdom. It's a small town called Wokingham, which is about 30 minutes southwest of London.
Right on. Nice. And okay, so how did you end up there?
So
you're not from there originally, right? So.
No. So I'm in the process of moving over here just because my wife is from here. This is where her family is. So we've been kind of over the last 6 months just working our way to getting over here and going through the visa process and stuff. So I was actually over here in February and flew home in February. Basically, it was like the last thing to do for me to go apply for my visa back in Canada. And then I got back to Canada, and it was kind of right at the peak of when everything was kind of going down with COVID, flights getting canceled and stuff. So basically, long story short, I flew back to Canada and then spent a day there and got on a plane the next day and flew right back here.
Insane.
Yeah. My daughter's here and we have a 6-month-old. So I was just a little worried about, when I would be able to see them next. So
yeah. So you have a 6-month-old. I have an 8-month and a 3-year-old.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So what's the parenting been like? So you're 6 months in, man.
Yeah. You know what? It's been amazing. I mean, it's been a total life shift, as you know, but yeah, it's been good. So
yeah. So you're moving over there. So what kind of initiated that move, that process? I'm genuinely curious, like, because I've always wanted to live in Europe or the UK or something like that. I'm kind of jealous that you get to.
Yeah. So, well, my wife had been in Canada for about 10 years, living with me. Yeah. So it's kind of just time, she'd been away from her family for a long time and we've been traveling back and forth. So yeah, it was kind of just, we decided it was time.
How does that work? So being in Canada, like you're still a part of like the crown, right? So
yeah. Not as easy as you would think.
Not as easy as you think, really?
No, even being married. So it's like it's a long process. You basically need to either get like employment over here, like sponsored,
right?
Or there's a couple of routes you can go, none of which are really that easy for getting your visa. But that's what we were working through, and we were just at the point basically where we can apply, and then everything's shut down. So things are on hold. Yeah.
So you've turned your in-laws' spare bedroom into a makeshift studio.
Yeah. I mean, basically my office and studio back home has been locked up for about 2.5 months now. So like when I got home for that day, I basically grabbed a backpack and flew back over here. So it's like all my equipment's there, all my clothes, like everything is back home. So when I came back here and knew that I was going to be here for a bit, they were kind enough to let me turn one of their spare bedrooms into an office. So I painted and bought a desk and got a little makeshift setup going on.
Yeah. Well, dude, you had me totally fooled. Like it looks so legit. It looks like you've like lived there for a few years.
Yeah. It's not bad.
You get the print on the wall. You've got your cameras on the back. It looks sick.
Well, it's funny because I've been like buying all sorts of like duplicates here. Because I was, I'm making a move anyway, so I'm gonna like probably half of my gear back home I'm gonna sell. But I have like monitors and a desk back home, and I bought monitors here, and I'm buying cameras and lenses and all this, basically everything, so I can work here, right? So
right.
At some point, I got a big purge to do.
Yeah. Well, so I've been following Analog, your YouTube channel for a couple of years, ever since we really started Local Analog, which. I laugh because of the similarities in the name, but yours is the Canadian spelling of it, or like the Europeans, whatever, the other version, the
long
UV
one.
At the end.
Yeah.
So that's how I can tell them apart. But I think your videos really, and I know you hear this a ton, but your videos really stood out in that beginning process for me because they were of a different quality. They were not like vlogger style. They were more of like a like, you put work into this, and, and I know that you do cinematography and filmmaking kind of on your own. So obviously you have a responsibility to make good videos if you're going to make them. Tell me kind of how and why maybe you got started in the YouTube game.
Yeah. So I like when I started my channel, me and my wife, we were on like a 12-month extended road trip where we like sold our house and we sold kind of all the stuff we owned, and we bought a truck and trailer and loaded up and drove essentially across Canada and then down the West Coast and then through the States for about 12 months. So I had all my photo gear with me, and that's kind of when I discovered film photography again. And prior to leaving, I'd been running a video production company, and I'd been in that world for a long time. And I'm naturally like a busy creative person. So being on the road, it was just like, something I'd thought about before. And then I just figured uh, it was something that could be fun to do. And then also kind of satisfy that, that video side that I still really enjoyed as a
Yeah.
creative. Yeah.
Yeah. And what has kind of been something that you're surprised about regarding YouTube? Like, have you surprisingly enjoyed it? Surprisingly, what has been that process for you over the last couple of years?
You know what? So I when I was on the road, I was pretty consistent with it. Like when I started my channel, I think I, posted for 6, 8 months, pretty consistent. And I always just started it as like a thing to do to like for my enjoyment, and then also to try and like help share my process and help, other people who maybe were trying to learn similar things.
Yeah.
So it was never like I never started it thinking like, I'm going to start a YouTube channel because I want to do this as like a career or full time or whatever.
Right.
But yeah, no, I ended up really, really enjoying it. And then I last year I went for like 8 or 9 months where I didn't post at all, which was kind of when we got back home from our trip, and I was started my company back up, and I was like, doing filmmaking again and creating a couple of short documentaries. And I was just so consumed like in this other side of my creative life that,
Yeah.
and then, funny enough, for about the past 4 months now, I've been back into YouTube pretty consistent because making some changes just in terms of like the focus. I've been balancing like this photography world and this filmmaking world for like probably like 12 years now. And it's like I pour all myself into one, and then I stop, and then I pour all myself into the other. So I
Yeah.
think I'm finally getting to a point now where I'm like probably going to try and focus on one only, which is
Yeah.
photography. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. What is, I'm the same way. I have such a hard time multitasking in that regard, especially with things like creative endeavors, because they just take so much effort. They
for
take so much
sure.
heart and effort. Because I mean, I'm one of those people that like, and this is good and bad, but I'm one of those kinds of people that, if I get my heart set on something, it's really, really hard for me not to go after it or do it.
For sure.
But if my heart's not set on something, I will not do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which made me a really bad employee before I was self-employed, and had really difficult times with former bosses, and part of that was pride and arrogance, but part of that was like it was a bit about like you know my trajectory kind of speaking a little bit to me. Like I was like,
For
well,
sure.
maybe like I need to try being self-employed for a little while and seeing if, is that just because I'm driven, or is that because like I'm just like insubordinate,
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it's a little bit of both, and so I'm working on the insubordinate part. But I have such a hard time balancing those kinds of things. So talk to me about that? Like what is that balance like? Like it's kind of one of those things to where you want to go out and shoot, and then you look at your camera shelf and you see like four cameras, four lenses, and it's like, well, freak, I don't know what I'm going to shoot. And
Yeah.
so then you just end up like not or something. So tell me about kind of what that balance was like over the last several years.
Yeah, so for me, it was strange because, like I said, I was doing filmmaking and then I had my photography as well. And I enjoyed both equally. But, like, say, for instance, last year I got really kind of consumed with a short documentary film that I was doing. I actually ended up doing two of them. So for me, I was excited about them. They took a ton of time and energy. So it was like all of my kind of creative energy were going into those projects. So there was no time for really anything else. I'd still get out and shoot a whole bunch, but in terms of like going and doing YouTube videos, it was like I just was too busy. So Honestly, the balance has been like that for me for a long, long, long time. It's like, pour it all into this one and neglect this one, and then switch and pour it all into the one I neglected and
Yeah.
neglect the other. And yeah, like I said, it's been just very recently, probably this year, where I've like got to the point where I'm like, I need to pick one, and I think I'm finally, after a long time, gonna do it. So
Yeah.
uh,
So in you guys' road trip, I've followed your work for some time. You guys went through like the Midwest as well, right?
yeah, yeah. So we did like West Coast, and then we stayed in California, but then we kind of like looped up into like Nevada, then down Nevada, Arizona, back over to California, just kind of all over the place.
Was there a place that really stuck out to you as like one of your favorites?
Oh man, you know what? The desert. We fell in love with the desert. Mainly like Arizona, Nevada was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Southern California. Yeah.
So what's the plan? I mean, you don't have to have a plan necessarily, especially with all this stuff going on. You might not even know what your next step is. But what's kind of the idea for living overseas in the UK? So like, is it are you going to try to pick up some freelancing, or what's that look like for you at this point?
So basically, back home, I was running a production company, and then I was also doing a bunch of freelance work, like on the video side of things. So for like travel shows and stuff like that. And then I was had a bunch of work lined up and some opportunities with like a international travel kind of adventure television show. Um, but obviously, that's completely
Right, right.
off the radar now until things kind of change moving forward, whenever that is. So but this has given me some kind of time to think, and it's also made me kind of uh realize a few things that maybe I wouldn't have if I, say, just came over to the UK and was like right into, okay, gotta switch things up, gotta find work, gotta do this. So it's also given me this time to like analyze all of these things, this balance and where I want to put my focus and stuff. So uh,
Yeah.
for me, it's like I'm probably going to transition at a lot of like commercial video work. Absolutely. I don't think that'll be my thing anymore. And then just pour myself into my photography, not from like a commercial standpoint, but from a like online for sure. So, I'm really enjoying the YouTube stuff. I have a course
Yeah.
out right now. I'm probably going to make another course, prints, speaking, just kind of go that route as much as possible. And then, supplement it however I have to
Yeah.
while I work away at it. I'm like, I'm, I'm far enough along and had enough experience now being self-employed that I know that things don't happen overnight, and I'm extremely comfortable doing whatever I need to do to just not rush the process and work
Yeah.
away.
Yeah, that's good. I think that's a thing, a lot of photographers, especially younger ones, and I would consider myself in this category. I mean, I've really only been shooting. I've been shooting professionally for like 4 years, and before that, it was like dabbling for a couple of years, and still dabbling in a lot of ways. But I think the hard part is like figuring out how to start.
For sure.
And people have written entire books on how to start, like regarding like a goal or a project.
Yeah.
How is that philosophy for you work? Like, what's your philosophy with making a project or setting a goal? Kind of what's your layout for that?
Yeah, so I'm at the point now where my biggest advice to myself and other people is to just start. Like, it's the only way it it can happen. And I think a lot of us, myself included, big time, waste so much time, doing research and building a website and perfecting our logo and networking and recording episodes and doing more research and
Yeah,
redoing our website. Like, it's like none of like those are all good things. Like, I think planning for projects and setting goals and all that is really good, but it's like starting, like, you basically have to start to learn lessons that you can only learn by starting. You know what I mean? and
yeah,
and
yeah,
I've realized that now, and I was really bad in the past with like I would always execute, but it would take me a while because I would like do all that stuff I was just talking about.
yeah,
So I think, if you have an idea and there's something that you want to do, like, yeah, take some time to think about it and figure out your direction, but don't spend too much time just get to a point where you just start and try it out, because it might, like, you might not even enjoy it, right? Like
Yeah.
there's all these things that you learn by just starting a project.
Yeah. Yeah. I know photographers who, like, it seems like they change their logo or update their website every year.
Yeah.
And by update, I don't mean add new photos. I mean like do a completely different website.
Well, you know what's funny is, funny enough, yesterday and today I've been redoing my website, and the best part is I was hanging out with a photographer friend of mine a couple months ago, and he was really kind of like kind of redoing his website and polishing it and stuff, right? And there's a lot of these other things that he's not doing on social media that I think could bring him a lot of value, right? Like I told him about starting a YouTube channel and just like screen capturing his editing workflow, like. And so I was kind of saying to him, like, when was the last time you went and like logged onto someone's website and looked at their work, right? Like a lot of us are consuming work on Instagram or on YouTube or all this stuff. So I'm like, it's easy to kind of get stuck in the past a little bit when like a website was like the only thing. And
Yeah.
then so here I am redoing my website, and but I'm very conscious now over the past couple of days. I'm like, don't spend too much time,
Yeah.
perfecting the font size for the menu bar. Like
Yeah.
you got all this other stuff to do that's important.
Yeah. And it's interesting. It's interesting. Like, it's almost like it's that saying, don't let the cart get before the horse or whatever it is.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's kind of one of those things to where we spend a lot of time trying to perfect the visual aspect or the perspective of our business, and we're not actually taking good pictures. Like, we're not actually getting out there and practicing our craft, taking good photos. Because at the end of the day, like, you can have a fantastic website, and I would consider my website a decent. It's on par with the standard.
Yeah.
But like I'm talking to a prospective client, several months ago before all this stuff happened, and they're like, yeah, but have you ever taken any like industrial photos? And it's like, it really comes down to experience and like what you can do
Yep.
and how you can showcase your work really well.
Yep.
And that's how you get jobs. You get and you get jobs, like, I always talk about, the character of a photographer. And that's kind of the idea of this whole podcast, is it's not just about, oh, what camera are you using, but it's about like, how can you grow as a person as well. And
Yeah.
you just start thinking about, if you're just going to keep redoing your website and, getting a new logo and doing this and this and this, but you're not like making relationships with clients and like taking photos and like getting really good at things, it's going to be really hard to be successful in this industry.
Yeah, I agree completely. And I mean, like, what's more effective than like redoing your website color palette is like emailing someone who you want to work with, or
Yeah.
networking with. Like, do you know all of these things that have such
Yeah.
huge impact?
Yeah.
And so that's like, when I was redoing mine over these past couple of days, that's the exact things I was telling myself in my head. Like, I have this to-do list. I have these big important tasks that I want to get done. Like, like my website was in need of a revamp, and it hadn't been
Yeah.
updated for years. So it's like, it was a thing that's important, but I'm like, don't spend too long in it, get it to where it needs to be so it has your work on it. And then, go and reach out to clients, go and do all these other kind of important tasks. And it's funny because, like, I don't think there's ever a time when I'm on someone's website, like a photographer whose work I really like, where I'm like, oh, like, I don't really like the font they chose for their logo. Like, you know what I mean? It's never like, I never take any of that into factor. It's like, I enjoy their work and their personality. And those are the important things.
In fact, if you admire their work enough, like, you somehow can look past a lot of like website, pitfalls. Like,
it could be neon green, and I wouldn't even. Well, that might be one where it's like, all right, this is a little hard to look at, but like,
but if it's like neon green and it's a photography you really like, you might actually be convinced somehow that like this is actually good,
and then maybe I'm making mine neon green the next day or something.
Yeah. We're very. I'm an extremely impressionable person, where like I think like brands like Apple have just like have me in the palm of their hand, just because their whole entire branding and marketing, thing is not our product is amazing, it's better than this one, but it's like, look at how you feel.
For sure.
Like, feel how you feel with our new $300 iPad stand or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you've been pretty busy in this, pandemic kind of season.
Yeah. I have. not much has really changed in terms of like a lot has changed, but in terms of like my how much free time I have,
Yeah.
that really like it still feels very normal. You know, I've been self-employed for so long that I'm so used to like setting a schedule, right? So I'm
Right.
still, you know, up and starting work. I'm calling it work, and I'm starting, and I have a to-do list, and I'm working until, you know, 5 or 6 or whatever it is, just on basically all this other stuff. And I guess I'm fortunate in a sense that like what I'm working towards um allows me to do that, right? It'd be different if I was, you know, working for someone and had a job where all of a sudden like they were closed and I couldn't go in, kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So what's kind of the landscape like where you are right now? And have you been able to go out and take photos at all alone or in the wilderness or anything like that?
So we're just in like a small neighborhood, so it's like super quiet around here. But like the rules right now over in the UK are like you're allowed out once a day for exercise. So I mean they're
Yeah,
pretty loose, and I mean uh, I've just been basically been going for walks once a day, and sometimes I bring my camera, sometimes I don't.
yeah,
To be honest, like for me, the area we're living in is not terribly exciting. So like that's a good thing in a way because it's like a good challenge. And even though a lot of the work that I've been shooting, I'm probably not going to do anything with, it's been a really good challenge just to like, you know, I think any time out creating is good, you know, working on your vision and composition, all that kind of stuff. But
yeah.
yeah, so I've been doing that, and then just doing whatever I kind of can here when it comes to like YouTube. So video wise, you know, stuff in the office, some stuff in the backyard, but yeah, pretty limited in terms of where we can go.
Yeah, and where do you find yourself, you know, and everyone loves the gear rabbit hole, especially me, but what do you find yourself reaching for these days?
Well, so the funny thing is like like I said, all my gear's back home. So I came back over with a backpack which had like I have like a GH5 which I shoot my YouTube stuff with. So that I luckily I grabbed that, and then I had a Yashica Mat 124G in there as well. Um, so yeah, that's kind of what I came back over with. And then since I've been here, I've been purchasing cameras just for some videos I want to do and another course that I'm working on. So I have like you can see them back there.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
this is a Mamiya M645 1000. And then I have, one sec. So I got this old folder, which is like a Zeiss
Oh,
Super
dude.
Iconta 6 by
Yeah,
6. Yeah, old
that's
coupled
sick.
rangefinder. So yeah, like it's funny. None of these cameras really like for me, the next kind of body of work that I work on, I want to shoot all 6x7, and I'll probably shoot it on the Pentax 6.7. So these are more like I'll probably sell most of these cameras. I just wanted to get
Yeah.
them to do some like I said, for this course I'm doing, and then for some YouTube videos. But I can't really see myself keeping them too much. I also have a Pentax 645 back home, which is my kind of
Yeah.
go-to. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think I actually watched your 645N video,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and that was kind of like a catalyst for me in getting mine. I actually just sold it to a guy in Ontario,
Oh
shipped it.
nice.
But I've kind of like been, you know, not on purpose at all, but I've kind of been consolidating a lot of my gear. I just found myself not really needing more than one medium format camera.
For sure.
I just found myself like the Pentax 6.7 is just like it is just everything. Like it's all I need in a camera. Like I've used the Mamiya 7s. I've used RZ6.7. I have an RZ on. I'm borrowing it from a guy right now, and I've used all these cameras, but nothing just really feels right compared to like a Pentax 6.7. Like
Yeah.
it fits in your hand better. I've got the wooden grip, and it just looks
Nice.
sick. And like I don't know, man. It just really works well for me. And so I've kind of deemed it like my only essential, you know, medium format 120 camera. So you know, 645 was really fun, but it kind of just felt like an upgraded. It is an upgraded 35 millimeter. I mean,
Yeah, yeah. I think it all depends on what work you're doing too, right? Like I have the 645N, which I'll keep. I really like it. And I look at that now as like, you know, a lot of the body, like my current body of work, all the American Southwest stuff, I shot a lot on 35 mil when I was getting back into film. And I really liked how portable that was, but obviously it's limited in terms of the negative size. So for me now, the Pentax 645 is kind of like my 35 mil camera. So I did a trip back out there in January, and that was kind of my like portable, quick, easy to use camera. And then 6.7 and a 4x5 are going to be my like main cameras moving forward for
Wow.
portfolio work. Yeah.
So you've kind of actually gone to a 4x5. I didn't realize that.
So I have one. I've had it since I think January, but I went out and I shot one day on it, and then it's back home right now. But I mean, not that I would need it here right now, but I really want to shoot my next project on 4x5 and maybe a little 6.7, but keeping obviously the aspect ratio matches, so it'll be a nice mix.
Right. Yeah. So I've shot with 4x5 2 times. I have one. I have a little Sonar, maybe is the name of it.
Okay. Yeah.
It's a great camera. It's the lens is like a little Nikon thing. I'm not really like technically well versed on the medium format or the large format, just because it escapes me so much. But we took it out and we shot these like canyons, and there's these canyons in Mississippi. We took it out like a year and a half ago, and we made a video on it, and it was just all so new to me.
For sure.
And I shot it with the f-stop wide open.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. A landscape just wide open. And the freaking thing goes to like, I don't know, like 100. Like, I mean, the f-stop goes really, really, really small.
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna shoot it wide open because it looks good. I don't know. And dude, yeah. So like, you see this landscape and like there's like one little tree in focus, because like the depth of field is
so narrow.
Yeah. And so, I mean, it would be hard to even shoot a portrait on that, just because you'd want at least 2 eyes in focus,
Yeah.
And so I've kind of been just dialing back on the 4x5 usage, mainly because it intimidates me a bit, and it's a lot of work. And so I've been wanting to pull it back out, and this is a really good season to do that, because you can go in your backyard and practice, or
for sure,
whatever it is. But I think it'd be really sick to do like a portrait project with.
Yeah. Has such a unique look.
It really would. Or and especially like doing some black and white would look really, really cool. So how is that how have you kind of been planning for this project? You kind of just like your next like 4x5 thing? What's kind of been your process for that?
So I don't even know what it is yet, to be honest. So like for the last basically 3 years, I've been working on this like portfolio of the American Southwest, and I did my last trip out there in February of this year. And like I could photograph that landscape forever, and I probably will. But in terms of like a body of work, it's like now it's time to put it together. And I really want to publish a book at some point, maybe later this year, or probably more likely at some point next year.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like this project has been like a long-term one over a number of years, and it was really kind of like it evolved as I shot it, as I discovered film again, and then discovered this landscape, and it's like now I'm kind of putting it together at the end. So moving forward, even though I don't know what I want to shoot next, I know I want to shoot, I almost want to approach my next project from more of like a documentary style standpoint, from like the filmmaking world, where I don't necessarily take like a single person, but I take a subject in terms of like an area somewhere here in the UK, and then I incorporate like environments, and then also like environmental portraits, and bring people into the mix.
Yeah.
So very different than what I'm working on now, and I have no idea what where that is, what it is, but I kind of know in terms of like how I want it to look, I guess.
Yeah. So this might be like a really loaded question, but talk to me a little bit about kind of how you see like the film community right now. Like, what's your experience with that? How involved? How much do you care? Like, how have you seen it kind of grow over the last 5 years or so? I've noticed personally that it's like you've seen these shifts towards like certain camera brands and certain like, I guess, certain looks and certain styles. So I'm curious to kind of hear from you. What have you seen? Because being a film YouTuber, you're kind of on the battlefront of that. I mean, like you are setting the the standard for a lot of things. Like if you start talking about a Pentax 645, this YouTuber starts talking about one, dude, you're gonna start seeing those prices go up. It's real.
Well,
like
it's funny. People comment now on my videos all the time. They're like, "Oh, thanks, the price is going up now," and I'm just like, Honestly, for me, it's as simple as like it's the reality of anything getting popular. More people get interested in something, so more people are talking about it, and it gets more exposure, and trends emerge, and whatever kind of thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So for me, I think personally, I've only been in the film kind of film photography space for since about 2017, and it's certainly exploded. But I think it's amazing, man. I'm like, whenever people ask me about that, I'm like, I think it's great, and I hope that it explodes even more and more people get interested in it. And like personally, I've been doing photography for about like 12, 13, 14 years, something like that. And there's just something about this space and the people that are in it and the community and the support. And yeah, it's just like I find it's really unique. Everyone's like, really supportive, really friendly.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just been really cool. But I think in
Yeah.
terms of like from like a popularity and equipment and trends, I think that's just inevitable. It would
Yeah.
happen. It would happen with anything, right?
Yeah, yeah. So, well, speaking of friendly, I mean, I literally I posted on our Instagram looking, hey, does anybody have an RZ67 that I can borrow or rent for a few weeks? And dude, a day later, a guy was like, "Yeah, I'll send you mine," and for
Yeah.
free, like,
Yeah.
completely just shipped it over to me. I got it in the mail 2 days ago, and it's like in amazing condition. Like this thing is really nice. I'm like, dude, like it's so crazy how kind and generous people are.
I had a fella, someone in the UK, email me like 2 days ago saying, "Hey, I know, I guess at some point on my Instagram, I posted asking if anyone had experience shooting with like a Fuji GW690." So he was like, "Oh, I remember months ago you asked." He's like, "I have two of them. You can borrow them if you want. I'll mail them to you." And I'm just like it's so like it's amazing, man. Really, really good, like good, solid group of people.
It's funny because you kind of see this trend. I don't know if you've noticed this, but you see this trend in a lot of places in a lot of different industries. So, like I'm obviously I don't advocate cigarette smoking at all, but I've noticed a trend, especially like where I'm from, where people are starting to like smoke pipes, like pipe tobacco, and that's kind of been like a trend over the last decade or so. But it's like there's this like trend of getting back to a certain sense of slow and vintage
Like
and
nostalgia.
nostalgia, man. It really is
Yeah.
like something like that. And so now it's like I remember when it was, I had a friend when I first started shooting. He had a Canon 5D Mark III.
Yeah.
And like I could not imagine how a camera could cost like $2,800,
Yeah.
$3,000. I was like, dude, like you paid what for this little camera? And now it's like if someone gets that, I'm just like, so the camera's lame. It's not lame, but you know what I'm saying? It's like now it's all we really care about is like, oh, dude, you found this, Mamiya 7 in this condition, and it's
Yeah.
like our the things that we're inspired by I feel like has changed so much to where digital cameras have really become a means to an end,
Yeah.
and being able to save up for like a new Leica, M6 or whatever it is has kind of become like the end. Like that is
For
like
sure.
that's what you want.
And it's been an interesting dynamic to see people react to that. Just because I find that like in the photography world, you have these people. Well, I mean, like I didn't shoot on film other than like I had like a point and shoot camera when I was like, I don't know, 14 probably, or I used a disposable, like whatever, right? But I never like since I've been into photography, digital was a thing, right? So I shot on digital, but now film's incredibly popular. So like you have these people every now and then who I've been shooting for a long time who started on film and saw film die and saw digital come back. So and in a way, it's got to be really strange for like now film to be coming back. And like every now and then, I'll have people like comment who almost hold like I don't really know how to put it, but just like have a strange approach, almost like they're trying to defend that film, you know, I would never go back to film, now that digital
Yeah.
is like you guys are crazy. But I don't know. I'm just like
Yeah.
it it happens all the time with things, right? With nostalgic things and things
Yeah.
becoming popular again.
Yeah, well, it's like, it's like people who for me, I love the idea of like harkening back to an older time,
Hmm.
which is nostalgia in a sense. Um, but like, being able to pick up, like I've got a friend's M3 right here
Yeah.
with a dual range 50 millimeter, and like this camera was like made in like the 50s or
Yeah.
whatever. And it's just like, you look through it and it's like it's needs a solid CLA. But like there's something about using that camera, and like my friend who this camera belongs to, he even more so. He handed me this thing. He's like, dude, that's the original Leica strap
For
that
sure.
came with the camera, so don't trust it. And I'm like, take it off. Like
Yeah.
don't use it for this. But it's like there's such a sense of harkening back to an earlier time that like we get inspired by these tools. I mean,
Totally.
it's kind of like with woodworkers. Of course, you can buy the $1,000 worth of tools and saws and gosh, the miter, whatever it is. I'm not even gonna try to get woodworking tools, but or you can buy like the simple hand tools,
Yeah.
and you can work at it for several weeks at a time. And I know people who are doing this right now, and it's amazing. I think that kind of feeling is in all of us. Like,
I I agree completely. And for me personally, that's um probably one of the biggest things that's attracted me about film. Like using film, it's not like I don't use it because I'm like, I use film because it's better or blah 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 or whatever, right? I'm just like, it almost allows the creative process to extend beyond the actual making, like the image itself. You know what I mean? Whereas for me with digital, it's just like you have these tools that are becoming better and better, and like the best lens with ultimate edge to edge sharpness and the absolute cleanest sensor, whereas like with film photography I feel like you can almost pick your tools in a very creative way,
yeah,
and use them for a particular project, and different tools for different projects, and there's almost like it allows you to kind of extend beyond just these creative decisions you make for the image itself.
yeah, yeah. And there's so much more character. I mean, you could almost list, the reasons you hear of like why film, like why do you shoot film,
Hmm.
and I used to have these like generic reasons, oh well, it makes me just slow down. Everyone uses
Hmm.
that reason, and that's
Yeah.
not
Yeah,
that's not a
it's
bad
true.
reason.
No, it's true. Yeah.
It's not a
Yeah.
bad reason at all. I like the way it feels like having more control over the process of, exposing the negative. Maybe you're developing and then you're scanning. I like that process. And that's
Yeah.
cool. That's a great reason. But man, like what I've said before is like, I love these old cameras. Like I love the way that there's character. I have a Pentax 105. That lens is an amazing lens. And
Yeah.
the way, like, and you get to know it. You really do. Like, if a Sony lens breaks, I'm like, crap, I've got to replace it
Yeah.
because I need this lens to operate, optimally. I mean, that's the idea. But if your Pentax lens has like, I swear, there's this angle that if you shoot at with where the sun is, in this particular lens, there's something that happens in the lens that just makes the light just go berserk. Like it does not look good in a commercial sense, but man, like there's a lot of creativity
Mm.
that you could have with that. And there's just it's something about this one lens that does that just because of years and years and years of people handling it. Cause I mean, this camera is, 30, 40,
For
however
sure.
old. And, this is just something that's just something that's always inspired me. Like this has been through the hands of so many photographers and people who have cared for their craft. And you get a new Sony lens, and you're just like, well, I'm thankful for it, but it's also like it serves a purpose. It
For sure.
is what it is. It does its job.
Well, and I think the most important thing is that, like, for all of us, is that we just use the tools that like we're most excited about, whatever it is, right? And that's why, like, for me, I have never ever would want to be the person who's like, that sucks, this is what you should use, right? It's like,
Yeah,
I don't, you could use a 1.2 megapixel camera from like 1998 and I'd be like, hey, if you're like pumped and it's like getting you excited, that's amazing. Or you could shoot on film, or you could use whatever. I think like we're all different, we're all going to um enjoy certain things more than others, and I think you should pick the tool and the process that works best for you and do it that way.
Yeah, the more I've gotten into commercial stuff, and that's a lot of the reason why, we took kind of a break from the YouTube channels because, thankfully my work started picking up and I was able to quit my day job to focus on photography. But one thing I started realizing was all these photographers who I look up to, like the Art Stribers, the Miller Mobleys, like all these people who are shooting portraits to like, a higher level. That's exactly their mindset. Like they're literally using the best tools that are available to them at a particular time.
Yeah.
And here I am over here, like surfing BH Photo, trying to find the best modifier when it's really like I'm wasting my time, like just grinding away at that kind of chase. And there's a time and place for gear acquisition, right?
For sure. Yeah.
But if you look at, like, for example, I'll use Art Striber. Art Striber on his Instagram page, every single photo has a behind the scenes to it.
Yeah.
And man, like you're talking about like that dude, literally the camera is such a tool. Like,
yeah,
this guy could be using, phase one cameras with like 100 megapixel backs, but like sometimes he's just using a Canon 5D. And it's just like, it kind of just tears down that facade of like, you've got to have, because like, with what he's doing, entertainment photography, whatever, he should be using Hasselblads and phase ones. Cause like that's the idea. That's the facade. And he just tears that away. He's like, nah, like this works and I'm going to use it because it makes sense for the shoot. It makes sense for the client. And I'm not going to get, caught up in the gear chase.
Well, like it all matters for sure. But it's like, especially so in like the filmmaking world, video gear, like cameras especially, have been like advancing at like a crazy rate, and people get really super wrapped up in things like dynamic range and highlight roll off and color science and all of these things, right? Like all these things that, yes, are important, but it's like the amount of time that is spent focused on those doesn't kind of amount or I guess how can I put this? I guess people are spending so much time focused on that stuff that there's all these other things that are going to have a bigger impact on the finished product that they're kind of neglecting, right? So like learning how to light better, or like learning how to tell a better story, or learning how to like color grade the footage from the camera, right? Like so it's like those things are important, but they're only like a small piece of the puzzle. And for me, at least, I've learned that there's probably like 25 other things that I'm going to screw up that are going to diminish the amazing camera I'm using and make my project look bad. So it's like,
absolutely.
Yeah, I get caught up in that stuff, and I try and stay like up to date with things. And obviously I'm like interested in gear, and I like, having cool tools and stuff, but I also try and, remember that it's like, there's a lot of other important things as well that are going to affect the project.
Yeah, I remember when I was starting to getting into like portraits and things like that, there was a level to which I was looking for like the right tool to help me, accomplish a goal. But like once I had the tool, I didn't know how to use it. And so it's almost like the most successful people or whatever, like it's really helpful to figure out like how to light somebody. Like, what does it look like to light somebody in a Rembrandt style, right?
For sure.
And, you need some sort of light to do that. But to teach yourself those kinds of things before you go out and invest, $3,000 on a new light, I think it's just really helpful. And it helps you to kind of go at it the right way. Back in the guitar days when I used to play a lot of music, I remember like kids that were just learning, they wanted to look like a guitar player so bad that their parents would go and buy them all the gear, like the guitar, the pedals, the amp. And like before you knew it, like this little kid, I used to teach guitar, so this is how I know this, but this little kid would have better gear than you did. He's like, he doesn't play guitar. And it's like, it's not that it's not fair, but it's like, it's wrong. It's like, there's a level of like, man, he needs to get to that place to where, buying that piece of gear is actually going to help him. But now it's going to make him worse because he doesn't know what that delay pedal does. And it's the same way with, buying up cameras with photography and cinematography, I bet, is just, you you don't take the time to actually get better as a photographer before, so you just buy gear because you think that's going to do the trick, and it never does. It never does the trick.
Yeah, and like I've learned that I think it's part of the process for everyone. I think it's
Yeah.
inevitable that is part of the process, and we get stuck in it for varying amounts of time. And like I can even remember when I first started in photography, I remember being super like excited about buying a new lens and like getting the lens and going out and like shooting the most random stuff so I could like zoom in to the images to 100% on the screen to like check the detail when I got home. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, I think you get to a point where you realize like, okay, yes, like this really good lens is a useful tool and I want to get it. But I've learned now from doing all that stuff in the past that like it's only going to help me with the project that I'm doing. And the project is really kind of the most important part.
Yeah. So, are you into photo books? Do you look at a lot of those?
I do, yeah.
Yeah. So, who have been some of your favorites that you've enjoyed the most?
So Stephen Shore's
Yeah.
probably the most influential, I would say, on my work.
Yeah.
His work is kind of the first body of work that I discovered when I got back into film, and it kind of opened my eyes to like this entirely new way of working. Because for years and years, probably about 10 years, I was focused on like traditional landscape photography, so like nature, wilderness, and that's all I did. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, people are like shooting, you know, images of like a main street at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon in bright sun. You know what I mean? Like it was just so completely opposite to what I was used to doing. And it really, really interested me and kind of captivated me. So I would say Stephen Shore's work for sure. I just picked up Wim Wenders. He has a book from his, he did the movie Paris, Texas. I'm actually trying to think of what the book is called. This is bad. I just got it yesterday. Oh yeah. Written in the West.
Nice.
So yeah, really, really enjoying this one. So I would say that probably Stephen Shore's work though is my favorite. Alex Sos, I don't own any of his books, but I'd like to get my hands on one or two.
I haven't looked in a long time, but his books are kind of hard to get a hold of depending on which one you want.
Yeah, he just released a course on Magnum, which I signed up for, which is great, really good. I'm about halfway through it, but Magnum is selling his books on there, so you can actually buy. I think nice. Sleeping by the Mississippi you could get for like it's like $100 US, so not
nice.
cheap, but
yeah,
but cheaper than
the first photo book I ever bought was like $150. I just didn't know any better. This is a great book and it's worth every penny, but an Icelandic photographer named Ragnar Axelsson. Have you heard of this guy?
No.
He, turns out, I didn't know this at the time, but he's a Leica M shooter. And he did this like decade-long project in the indigenous peoples, like the Inuit and like the Eskimos. And he did this really long project documenting their lifestyle. And this book is called Last of the Arctic. And man, it is mind blowing. You should look up some of his work. That book is extremely expensive, and it's hard to. It took my local bookstore like 6 months to get it in.
Oh wow!
I didn't realize that at the time. I saw it on another photographer. He was glancing through it, so I googled it. And I was like, that looks sick. So I just bought it, and then like turns out like it's like my bookstore is like that's $150.
Oh man!
I was like, oh crap. Well, it took you like 6 months to get it, so I guess I just have to bite the bullet here. But it has been worth every penny. That book is something that I go back to constantly, just because of his nature of storytelling and capturing a people that don't look like him and people that don't live like him, a culture completely separated from like honestly like all of our civilian lives. I mean, it's so different. And I've really enjoyed the other first book. There's two, I guess, but there was the other book that I first saw was the William Eggleston book.
Oh yeah.
And the reason his struck me so much is because a lot of his work was actually done.
This one?
Yeah.
Guide?
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, a lot of that work is actually shot like 3 or 4 hours north of me.
Oh yeah, makes sense. Totally.
Yeah, and so he actually still lives in Memphis.
Oh wow.
And a mutual friend who lives in North Mississippi, like, was his assistant back in the day.
No way. Oh
Yeah,
wow,
yeah,
that's pretty cool.
yeah, and so she still like goes and visits him, and like he
You got
plays.
to go for a visit.
Dude, I want to, but he plays the piano, and I don't know if he does any shooting anymore. I would imagine he does, but man, watching that guy use a rangefinder is fantastic.
I can imagine. Yeah,
I saw a video, like a documentary on him, and like he really does just like, speaking about the camera being a tool, man, it really is just like
for sure.
He sees a moment and he doesn't mess with his camera. He just up and down. That's it.
Yep.
It's so quick. And so his work was just beautiful, and like seeing the color of it was just unbelievable. And it really made me grateful to live in a place that I do, because if I'm honest, I can get pretty discontent with living in the South, just because I think I feel like I'm more cut out for like the city. Whereas, if I lived in the city, I'd probably feel like I was more cut out for the country.
I think we all do it.
Grass is greener, man.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, I feel the same way for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But man, tell me, last thing I'll ask you is, what are some things that you're into that don't relate to photography or cameras or anything like that?
Oh man, honestly, like not much. It's kind of been like what I've been obsessed with for a long time now. Obviously like a big one's my family.
Yeah. Sure.
Especially with having a little daughter now, travel, which has been, obviously difficult to do recently, but, certainly moving for like one of the first things, that's kind of on my to-do once I get settled here is to buy like a camper van, cool little camper van. And then I want to kind of get on the road and travel UK and Europe and stuff like that. So travel, and then, just like my days are spent doing photography, reading, thinking, consumed. I really, really enjoy it. And, filmmaking as well, but not so much anymore.
Yeah. Well, man, your work, definitely shows that you care about your craft. And, I've said for a long time, I've said that your work is so consistent in a good way, not just in like a monotonous way, but like your work is consistently fresh, yet it's still Kyle Mcdougall. You know what I'm saying? Like there's an element to your work that is really good. And I don't get the feeling that you're just like a gear nut. Like I don't get the feeling that you're only a gear nut. Like you probably are a gear nut. We all kind of
we all are, for sure.
But like you're not only, because you have some photographers that are gear nuts and they're not good picture takers. But you seem to be a photographer first, and because you love what you do, you also love the craft and like the gear that kind of surrounds it.
For sure.
So I think that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah, the content's important. I mean, it's why I do this, right? Like the images and the final product that I put out is really important to me. First and foremost for myself, right? These places I'm photographing and stories that I'm kind of sharing. So I think we're all gear nuts a little bit, and like we were saying, you at some point get out of the phase where you realize like, okay, I got to create some work as well. So just
what kind of RV? Like you're talking about going on an RV. I'm trying to picture you in an RV.
Oh, so well, when we set off on our trip there back in 2017, our original idea was like Volkswagen van.
Yeah, nice.
But then we were like, we had a dog, like our dog with us, a German Shepherd, and we're like 12 months might get a little tight. So we just bought a pickup truck, and then we had like a 20-foot trailer that we towed.
Nice. Okay.
But over here, I was going to buy a Volkswagen van, and then I actually, there's kind of this whole other world of like vehicles that aren't available back to me in Canada. So I'm going to buy just like a little Mazda with like a pop top camper and stuff like that.
Nice. Yeah. That's awesome, man. Well,
yeah.
Man, I obviously, appreciate you so much taking the time to talk with me a bit. And
yeah, absolutely, man.
I love following your work, and looking forward to hearing more about your work as, the pandemic dissipates, hopefully. I'm looking forward to seeing, man, what you create.
Yeah, thanks, dude. I appreciate you inviting me on here. It was fun.
For sure, man. We'll talk soon, I'm sure.
Okay, sounds good.
You've just listened to the Local Analog Podcast. Our goal with this podcast is to dive deep into the creative mind and heart, to become better photographers in our skill and in our character. For more information, please go to our Instagram page @LocalAnalog. Thanks for listening. See you next time.